Good morning, my bells and bats. It is actually 9 o'clock in the morning, so I'm filming a lot earlier than I normally would. But I wanted to walk you through something that I'm working on today. So if you're new here, my name is Sheena Perrell. I'm an author, knitwear designer, and on this channel we talk about creating things, whether it is with fabric, yarn, or words, and today is a words day. So I wanted to walk you through what my research process is for my big nonfiction project that I'm working on, the Eleonora Project, which you can find out more about that below. But basically that is part historical research, part experimental archaeology. It's kind of like writing a biography. And basically I'm researching the wardrobe of Eleonora de Toledo, who was a noblewoman who lived in the mid-1500s in Florence, Italy. And I'm looking at her garments and also the people who would have made her garments and what her influence was on the economy in her area, because she was very big into textiles. I am going to put a flicker warning on this video just because I'm going to be filming my computer screen and I don't know how well that's going to translate. There might be some flickering on the screen. So that being said, let's get started. So when I started out working on this project, this is actually based off of my master's thesis. I did an accelerated master's program in Florence, Italy. It was a one-year program, but I still had to do all the same work. I had to do all the same hand skills, and I still had to write a thesis paper. So my topic was on burial garments and their conservation. And as part of that, I focused on the burial garments of Eleonora de Toledo. I originally wanted to do my entire project on her. However, I couldn't find a way of doing that just because I didn't have access to the garments. And the whole thing with a thesis is you have to ask a question and then find an answer to it, or attempt to find an answer to it. And because I was a nobody foreign student, I did not have access to those garments. These are some of the most important pieces of cultural patrimony in the country of Italy, and they're probably the most important in the city of Florence. So they're not going to let just anybody go in and look at them, and especially because they were on display at the time that I was there, it wasn't like they could just pull them out of storage for me. This was something where they were on display to the public. They were in temperature controlled display cases. These garments have held me in thrall ever since, hence working on this project, which is mostly for my own personal gratification. Like, nobody's paying me to do this. I wish they were, but this is just something I'm doing on my own. And as a little bit of a backup, I was one of those kids who did not learn how to study or research growing up because things just came easily to me in school for the most part. I really struggled with math, and I still don't know how to study math other than just rote memorization, which I'm really bad at. But doing research was just not something I was good at. I really didn't learn how to research until I was working on this master's thesis, because even when I was in college, I went to art school, and most of my liberal arts instructors assumed that because we went to art school that we were either stupid, had severe learning disabilities, or just didn't care, or that it wasn't going to matter once we graduated. It was just something that we had to do to meet state requirements for graduation. So, and accreditation and all of that. So this is something that is relatively new to me. It's something that I've been teaching myself and learning on my own since I graduated with my BFA. But I thought that I would walk you through some of that because I know I'm not the only one who is like this. And hopefully if you are in high school or college, or if there's something that you want to learn on your own, this is something that can help you out. So I started my search with just finding books that had her name listed in them somewhere in the index, or just Googling or reading blogs about people who had visited some of these exhibits or visited other exhibits that contained her possessions or the possessions of her husband or family members, and taking notes on those. And I took really bad notes. And from there, I progressed to using Google Scholar, which, if you don't know how that works, you just go to google.com and there's a tab you can click for Scholar, and it will pull out scholarly peer-reviewed articles that you can access for free about whatever topic you're researching. So I started with that, and then I was introduced to a couple of different databases. When I was doing my master's, we had access to something called JSTOR, which is just a full database of a whole bunch of scholarly papers and journals. There's another one called Abisco. And those were the two main ones that I used for my thesis and afterwards. JSTOR you used to be able to access for free, but now you need to have a membership. And I'm very lucky in that I work in higher ed. And even though I'm not a professor or anything like that, I still have access to databases. And because I work for a state school, this means that I have access to the databases of other state schools, basically through like an interlibrary loan system. So I can access a whole lot of information. I've also started working with research librarians, both on my campus and on another campus, to try and find the information that I'm looking for. So that has been very helpful. But let me turn you around and show you kind of what I've started with. Okay, so first of all, we have my notebooks. I've actually got two of these. This one is all like scientific, historical, conservation information on how textiles were made, how textiles from this time period are treated. A lot of them are looking specifically at the belongings of Eleonora, who is pictured here and here. And then inside, I just printed off all the stuff that I could find, and I put it in page protectors. I do have a color coding system for what I highlighted. And this is just everything. I've got her family tree in here to reference. And so this was how I started, because it was a lot easier for me to read paper copies than it was digital, but most of what I had access to came from the internet. This is what my notes look like on the computer. This is not how I used to take notes, and this is going to sound stupid, but I started this because I was watching Discovery of Witches, and the main character in that is a researcher. She has a PhD. And in the beginning of the book, she is doing research on a historical topic, and you see a brief flash of her computer screen where she is taking notes on what she's reading. And something just kind of clicked for me on that. So now I go through and I use the headings function in Microsoft Word to write down the title. And in this case, because I'm using Wikipedia, I've got several articles here at the beginning. And these are just like really quick reference guides. Like, I can't remember what year Cosimo was born. Well, I can go back to these notes and find it. So this lets me quickly go in between the different articles that I'm referencing. I also used Excel to create timelines. So this one right here is for the births and deaths of their children, just so I could kind of put things in context. Like, you know, they were having a really bad time this one year, and oh look, 3 of their kids died in around the same time. So that's one thing that I did. I have another timeline that is just like things happening in Italy and in the world at that point. But anyway, I went through and I wrote down, you know, when I accessed it. I put down, let me go back to an article or something. So this is from a book, and I put in all the citation information that I can find. And these right here, I'm going from pages that I had photocopied here a couple of years ago. I need to go back through and add some of this information. Here we go. This is a better one. So this is all of the citation information for when I do my bibliography at the end, because yes, this project has a bibliography. But it tells you where I found it, when it was printed, who wrote it, all of that. And then in some cases, I'm pulling things that are in other languages that I don't speak. So I'm using Google Translate. Google Translate has gotten a lot better than it was when I lived in Italy. And it's still not perfect, but it's a lot closer than it used to be. And it's a lot better than me trying to muddle through on my own in a language that I am not fluent in. And then at the end here, say that, somebody in this article references a study that was done a couple of years previously. I can go into this list, add it in there, and then when I meet with the research librarians, I can ask them if they have access to this or know where I can find it. So these are all things that I want to find. If I know what language it's in, I've included that just to make it easier to search for. A lot of the databases that my institutions have access to are primarily in English, and sometimes if you search for something in English, it's not going to come up even if it exists because the paper is in another language or vice versa. So that is how I started out on my research. It is still ongoing. I'm actually sitting down today and taking some notes. I'm going through that yellow binder that I showed you and taking all of my notes from those articles, putting them into the computer. And the reason I'm using the computer for this, even though I prefer handwriting my notes, is because the computer is searchable. So if I need to know something about who the main embroiderer for the court during Eleonora's time was, I can search for embroidery or embroiderer, and Microsoft Word will take me to that information in my notes. If I happen to be at like a lecture or something, I will take notes by hand and then I will copy them into the computer. And I do this for two reasons. One, if I'm drawing a diagram or something, then I can do it more easily by hand and then scan it or take a picture of it and insert it into the document. And also, writing things down creates muscle memory and it makes things easier to remember. So that is how I'm doing my research. I'm spending today doing research and note-taking for the most part. And hopefully in a couple of days, I will be able to get my hands on some other resources and probably chat with a research librarian again to find more links and figure out where things are. I feel like I'm getting pretty close to the end of the research portion of this project. It's mostly just the handwork that has to be done. However, doing the research helps keep me motivated, and I am still trying to track down some primary sources that I have not been able to get my hands on yet. Things like court records from the period, guild records about like who the knitters were, what they were doing, how big of an industry was knitting at that time in the city. So I'm still trying to find out that information, and it's information that I don't know if I can access, because not only is this very old information in a foreign language, but I don't know that that information has been digitized or made available even in Italy. So it might be one of those where the only way to get that information would be to get on a plane and go to Florence and meet with someone at the Florence archives who can hopefully help me find it, which causes its own set of problems because I cannot read handwriting from the 1500s. It's very different from today, and when you add not only a language I don't speak, but an archaic version on top of that, I don't have a way around that. I don't really know anyone who speaks fluent Italian. I don't really have anyone who'd be able to like go with me and translate. Even in the off chance that I somehow won the lottery and could afford to take a plane to Florence right now, which is not happening. So yeah, there are still some challenges on that I'm working through, but this is how I'm doing my research, and this is how I'm spending my day. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it at least a little bit useful. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, let me know by commenting, liking, subscribing. We talk about books and writing on this channel, as well as knitting, crochet, sewing, embroidery, all kinds of stuff. So stick around. I'll see you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope you have something cute and fluffy to cuddle with. Ciao!